I don't think there's a better place to talk about authors and writing and poets than at a public library. So here we are at the Zelienople Public Library to talk with some of the people from Butler County who have done some writing and had their writing published. So let's go inside and talk with some writers from Butler County. John Zappia from Evans City has written 3 books, and he has a very interesting experience, a business experience, as well as an after retirement experience. Now, John, which is the first book that you wrote?
The first book that I wrote was, it's called The Greatest Gift from Sicily, the life and times of Donna Brigida, who was my grandmother.
So this was kind of a biography of your family that lived in Sicily.
It was a biography of my family from the time they left Sicily until they moved into Pittsburgh in the Larmer Avenue area, all the way up until the time my grandmother died in 1950. So it spans from 1868, starting in Sicily, all the way up to 1950.
You were a vice president at PNC Bank. Did you do any writing while you were still working?
Yes, I did some writing, nothing like my books or anything, but I worked in an area. I was in charge of operations services, which we did do a lot of cost-benefit studies and operations studies. So I put together a lot of proposals on that and a lot of instructional sheets, but nothing like my books that I've written. They were more instructional and, beneficial business-wise.
Let's talk about your first experience in writing that first book. How do you start? Where do you get the idea, and what do you put on paper first?
Well, the last thing on my mind was publishing a book when I put that book together about the greatest gift from Sicily. What I did over the years since I retired is gathered a lot of stories, short stories about my grandmother, about my mother, my dad, and everything. And my sister, who she did all the interpreting when we grew up in a family of primarily Italians. And she gave me a lot of stories also about my grandmother and that in my family. So I wanted her to publish the book. And, well, she never did it, so I just took all those little bits of pieces of paper and organized them into a book, and I had no intention of publishing it. I just wanted to do that for my children. And it turned out good enough to publish it, and it reads pretty well. I still read it and reread it over and over again. I like it.
Well, that's because you're in the family. Would there be much interest in the outside? In other words, did many books sell? Did you get much reaction from the outside world?
Well, I'm going to keep my daylight job. Let me tell you that. Okay, I have sold some, probably a few hundred of that. It's not going gangbusters, as they say, but I like it. It's a good book. If nothing else, my children will have something to remember when I'm gone here.
Well, obviously that prompted you to write a second book, which was which one?
The second book was my wife and I went over to China, and we toured for 1 week over in China, in Beijing. In the second 2 weeks, we taught conversational English over there in Xi'an, where the terracotta soldiers are over there. So what I did is, now I did keep a log every day when we were over in China, so I didn't do it immediately, but when I came home, what I did is I took my log, and that's when I prepared the book, and I had to go back and do a lot of fact-checking, but it goes through the 10 best places to visit in China, the first half of it, and the second half of the book goes into day by day our experience teaching over there, and that was quite an experience.
How was it teaching Chinese to speak English? Was that a difficult process for you?
The way I approached it, and I was never a teacher, but the way I approached it over there, I was teaching seniors in high school over there, and my wife was teaching juniors. And they understood English grammar and everything. What they didn't understand was, how to actually speak the words or anything. So I would pick a theme every day at class, like money one day, traveling another day, and give them little expressions and go over, this is how you say it, or I was trying to give them more of what the culture of America is also.
How long a period was it, the teaching period?
It was only 2 weeks that we taught over there.
And could they learn enough English to be conversational in that short time?
I doubt that very much, but what they did learn, they got a little piece of what the United States is like, and I went into different things like jobs and how much the teenagers make over in the United States versus, which shocked them, and they wanted to know things like what do teenagers eat, what kind of jobs do they do over here? Same thing, and they were very, very disciplined over there. But at the break time, you could tell they were no different than the teenagers in the United States, laughing, joking.
Basically, were the Chinese people you were talking to much different from Americans?
No, they were actually pretty polite to us. But you got to remember, we went with a group called Global Volunteers. So we were actually, our organization was actually requested to teach there. Okay, so it wasn't like we just went in and says, would you like us to teach here? In fact, that's the way Global Volunteers works. They only go to places that they're requested to be, but they treated us extremely well. In fact, we had one administrator followed us all around and helped us through. Without him, I would have probably really been helpless over there.
And your third book?
And the third book is really just a collection of short stories, things that I've just been putting together over the last, I'd say about the last 5 years. But all 3 books were written and published within about a 5-year time frame. So they came out, pretty much sequentially, year by year. But it's hard to even explain. It's a type of book you can read you can start at the beginning, you can start at the end, you can start in the middle and still enjoy it. It's just about different experiences in life.
If someone wants to buy your book, how can they learn about it and how can they go about doing it?
They're all available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Okay, and I when I make presentations or that, which I do at several places, I usually sell them there at. They save a little bit on the shipping and handling that.
Wasn't it exciting for you? Wasn't it thrilling when that first book was sold?
Oh yeah. In fact, every time I go somewhere and talk about this, in fact, I give classes sometimes. On Slippery Rock, I gave a couple classes on how to write and self-publish your own book. And one of the things that I tell everyone, I heard this from an instructor one time, and I'll never forget it. She says, if you're writing and trying to publish a book, for economic reasons or trying to make money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. But it is pretty exciting to see that book in print and, saying, boy, look, this is something I did without anyone's help, and it's my words and my, somebody will read this when I'm gone, and maybe they'll understand a little bit more about me if they care.
It's good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome, Larry.
Rebecca Neely here is from Zelienople, and you live just a little way from the Zelienople Library. How did you get started thinking about writing a book, and when was that?
I've been writing forever. Since I was a little kid, I've always loved reading and writing. And I freelanced for about 15 years, but I always wanted to tell stories of my own, too. And so I wrote a couple of books that were never published and shouldn't be published, but I kept trying. And in 2013, I wrote A Mighty Good Man, and that was published in 2014.
Before that, you said you were freelance. What does that mean?
I wrote a lot of blogs, articles, magazine articles, corporate profiles for business clients all around the country. It's pretty exciting.
Did you ever try to have one of those published in a magazine or something?
Some of them were published in different magazines. They were local, like North Hills Monthly, things like that.
Were you a good writer in school back when you were in grade school and high school and beyond?
I always loved it. I think I was. I think my teachers enjoyed the stories in high school and college. So
Where did you get your first idea for your first book?
I grew up in my parents' restaurant business. It was Ricardo's restaurant. It was in Butler, actually. And my brother and I and my whole family, we grew up working and cooking and eating in there. A Mighty Good Man takes place in a small mom-and-pop restaurant. And so a lot of the action, is from my memory, and it's hallowed place in my memory.
So are many first novels, do you think, are biographical, like yours seems to be?
I think as a writer, I think it's impossible not to put some of yourself into the book, and I think that's really what makes it good. So they always say, write what you know, and that just was really kind of a book of my heart. So
I understand that the genre of the category that you're writing in is romance novels. Now, what kind of a romantic story is there about a restaurant?
Well, basic premise of the story, a down-and-out writer teams up with a gang leader, a former gang leader who's on the run, and they team up to tell his story for mutual gain, but they end up falling for each other, and they're helping each other out, and when the gang enforcers come after them, they, the trust that they have forged is put to the test.
How do you structure a story, a book? What do you start with, and how do you know when to start there?
I think starting a book in the right place is really important. You want to grab your reader. I think what I try to do is figure out what, like maybe 5 or 6 major things that are going to happen in the book. And then I kind of fill it in between. Something that's really going to, grab you in. And I try to start somewhere right in the middle of a situation without explaining a whole lot. So the reader is sucked right in, and then they have to read on to kind of figure out what's happening. So
some writers say when they start a book, they really don't know how it's going to end. Is that the way it worked with you?
I think you have to know how it's going to end so you can, kind of know how to get from point A to point B. I do outline some, but I always leave room for surprises because that's part of the fun.
When you start to write a book, how long does it take before you actually put the first words on paper?
A couple of weeks. I brainstorm. I develop my characters. I try to find pictures that remind me of things, a lot of times on Pinterest, things like that. And I go then to the blank screen with those ideas in mind. So,
are the characters in your books more or less people that you know, that you're basing them on somebody that you already know?
No. No. I think there's probably little bits and pieces of, the everyday that we all experience that strike me, and I really love all those kinds of details. And maybe I notice things like that more often, so I think I inject some of that into the story, sure.
When you finished the book, were you happy with it?
I was very happy. My editor is amazing, and she helped me to make the book better in ways I would never have imagined. So
now, your editor obviously works for a publisher. How did you find the publisher, or how did they find you?
I was part of an online pitching event at savvyauthors.com about a year ago, and 2 years ago now. And the agents and editors come together, and people like me who have a book to pitch, you get just so much time, and you get to tell them a little bit about your book in really about 100 words. And it was really exciting. I actually had 4 offers for that book when we were all said and done. So
it sounds like getting the story down to 100 words is a craft in itself.
It is. It really, really is. But it's a necessary skill so you can communicate, what your book is about.
How soon after that did you start your second book?
A couple of months. I did take a couple of weeks off because it's creative. It's draining to get all of that down, and it's hard work. And so I did give myself a couple of weeks off, and then I started into the next book.
Wouldn't it be difficult to make the second book completely different from the first book?
You know what? No, not really. My second book is it's a paranormal romance, and so it really is very different from the first one, which is just a romantic suspense. So I actually had a lot of ideas for that. I actually filled up a notebook with ideas in a weekend for that book. So
the name of your 2 books?
My first book is A Mighty Good Man, and the second book, which is coming out very soon, is The Keeper. It's the first book in the Crossing Realms series.
And where are they available?
They are going to be available on Amazon.
Do you have a third book in mind yet?
Yes, I'm actually almost finished with that one. It's the second book in the Crossing Realms series. It's called The Watcher.
What's that story going to be about?
The Crossing Realms series, in a nutshell, is about a group of good guys called the Keepers and a group of bad guys called the Betrayers, and they are battling each other to save the human race. But all's not fair in love and war, and there's a couple chosen psychics that might wind up being the sacrifice or the salvation for this clan of keepers.
It's so nice talking to you. Good luck with your next book, and good luck with the ones you've already published. Nice to talk with you.
Oh, it's great talking with you too. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Our next author is from Evans City. He is Everett L Foster. Now, Everett, you started out writing poetry, I understand.
Yes, I did actually. Back when I was in elementary school, I was in a few like elementary school poet competitions, and I had a few works published, but nothing huge though.
Well, how is it that you started with poetry rather than something else?
Well, poetry, honestly, I loved the rhyme when I was little. It just really, you could play with the words, you could have a little bit of fun, you could be more creative that way. So I always just had, as a child, I mean, I just loved doing that. You could play word games with yourself.
Well, I've been reading poetry in different publications, and many times they don't rhyme.
Well, yeah, there's so many different ways of poetry that one could work with. I always thought it was a way to express my mind, be creative, and be a little bit funny and silly at the same time too with it.
When you start to write a poem, do you have a complete idea what the story is going to be first?
No, not really. You kind of just go with it, go what you're feeling. It's kind of like my book actually. I just kind of went with the flow and just started writing and drawing, and now I have my first book out.
All right, let's talk about that first book. When did you start writing it?
I started writing it about 3 years ago, actually. It was just something that I felt that I wanted to do for myself, and I started drawing the pictures and just writing the story, and it just collabed together.
Was the story itself based upon something in your own life?
Yes, it was actually. When I was in elementary school, I was bullied as a child, and
Bullied?
yes, bullied. A lot of the kids. I was different when I was in elementary school, and kind of like my character, he is bullied because he's different, because he skateboards, and the other elves don't like that, so they are mean to him.
Well, let's get to the beginning of that, because you mentioned some things where we're not sure where you started and where it's going. You were talking about elves, you were talking about skateboards. How does all that come together?
So my initials actually spell elf, Everett Lawrence Foster, and that's how I got the idea for the elf. And being that I skateboard, I decided to give my character skateboarding qualities as well. And that's what he likes to do. And being that he's a North Pole elf, the other elves don't like him because he doesn't like to make toys. He likes to skateboard.
So they bully him?
Yes, sir. They actually send him away because they don't like him. They don't think he should live at the North Pole anymore.
How did you handle bullying when you were younger and you were being bullied?
It's really hard for any child when they're bullied. I know it's still really popular. I mean, a lot of people get bullied today, and it's a shame. Honestly, your parents can help you out so much, and there's always people at the school, guidance counselors who can help. And I mean, honestly, a lot of my support came from writing, hence the poetry. When I was little, I'd get stuff off my mind by writing, and that really helped, kind of like a self-medication when I was little.
Why do you think kids bully each other?
Well, I think a lot of it is because, there's nobody the same. Everybody's different. And I think some kids just have a hard time experiencing those differences when they see someone else who is different from them. And I think that plays a huge role in it.
Did you consider yourself different?
I did, actually. And as you can see now, I am still kind of different. I'm covered in tattoos. I'm covered, with that. But if you'd get to know me, you'd see, obviously, that I'm a pretty nice person. I try.
Well, now, bullying at a younger age, we can all understand that. You still have the tattoos and you still wear earrings. Are you bullied in some other way by adults?
Actually, yeah, it's surprising because as an adult, I do get judged by a lot of people for the way I look. And that's a sense of bullying too. If someone doesn't like how you look, maybe they'll treat you a little bit different.
How do you handle it?
Honestly, with being an adult, you kind of learn into that and kind of just accept it. I accept the way I look, and I'm not ashamed of the way I look. So a lot of it is just taking that and honestly turning that bad thing into a good thing and using that to help you rather than to bring you down.
How did your first book sell?
My first book is selling actually pretty great right now. It's available on Amazon, and it's only been published for a year now. But we're up and coming. We're still doing a lot of promotions for it. So hopefully, future brings good sales.
It takes a publisher to publish a book. How did you get yours?
It was actually through a family friend of ours, through a church camp we go to, a friend of a friend, and that friend of the friend is now my agent, and she has really helped me out so much. And like I said, I just wrote it for myself, and someone told me I should email this lady, and I did, and it got published.
Is there another book in the pipeline?
Yes, I wrote a second book. It's called Circa, the Heavy Metal Cat.
Say that again?
Circa, the Heavy Metal Cat.
What's the story about?
It's about my cat, actually based on a true story, and she loves heavy metal music. She loves the guitarings. She loves the drums. She loves everything about it.
If there are some people watching us today that are thinking maybe they should write their first book or their first poem, what advice would you give them?
I would say just write down what you feel. Write down what comes to you. It's all about what you like, and if you write how you feel truly, you might actually go somewhere with it.
So is all writing, do you think, biographical?
Not all of it, but a huge outcome of it would be.
Do you have an idea for a third book yet?
I do. I'm doing every other book about Retzoff, the skateboarding elf. So every other book will be in his story, meeting new friends, going new places, skateboarding at different spots.
As an author, do you get to meet other authors, maybe to get some ideas from them about their techniques?
Oh yeah. I've over the year have met a lot of great other local authors that have helped me out, and currently I'm working with one, doing different promotional stuff. It's really nice to feed off each other like that and help each other out, maybe get another head start in life.
Well, good luck with your future writing. Good luck with your next book. It's good to meet with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Larry. I really appreciate it.
The library director here in Zelienople is Jan Lawrence, and you've been here many years. When you first started, did you start as the library director?
I started as the assistant library director.
What was your background? How do you become an assistant library director?
I have a BS degree from Clarion University of Pennsylvania in library science, and I had worked at Clarion District Library Center when I lived in Clarion. So my background came from there.
Now, this is a beautiful building that looks new, but it's not new, is it?
No, it was built in 1975 by the Foreman Group. They were the architects, and they won an award for this building.
Well, I can see why. It's a beautiful building. Does the public appreciate how really nice this library is?
Yes, I think they do. And a lot of the older residents don't like to see if we make changes. They like it to stay the same. So we try not to change too much.
Let's talk about the people who come here. I know you call them patrons. Are they at all different ages, or just older people, or just younger people?
All different ages, but it seems like more so now, it's a lot more children. And I think that has to do with the programs that we offer for children.
Now, that's really hopeful, because with this electronic age, you would think that people would not be interested in books anymore.
Oh, I think the younger children, your preschoolers and your early elementary, it's all about raising readers now. And we want them to be able to read as well as be able to play with all the technology and the gadgets.
Well, doesn't the reading have to start in the home? How would you encourage people who don't now encourage their children to read? How would you convince them that maybe reading is so important for their children?
Through our programmings, through our story times, and our activities after school, and our evening activities, bringing them in that way, doing fun things, but at the same time saying, let's read.
I think one of the most exciting things for anybody walking through a library or walking past a library is to see young children 4 and 5 and 6 years old carrying books.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. We have a Wee Ones program now, which is for babies, and it's for birth to 24 months. And it's fun to see those little faces just holding the board books. Not really reading, but looking at the pictures.
But I understand there's something really unique here at the Zelienople Library. Somehow it involves a dog?
It sure does. It's called our Pages and Paws program. And right now we have Roxy, our in-house dog, we should say. And she comes and she listens to children read. And that helps children then read at their own pace. and nobody's saying to them, what's that word? You didn't pronounce that right. They just can read. And Roxy's great at that.
So no intimidation.
No intimidation, no. And she gives wonderful kisses, too.
Does the dog know what's happening?
I think she knows that she's calming them. I think she has that inner sense.
Tell us about some other programs that you have here to attract patrons.
We do special programs. We do magic shows. We do a show called Polar Express, where before Christmas we read the Polar Express story, and story hours 2 and 3 times a week, after school programs and activities for them.
When was the first Zelienople Library formed?
1919.
So you're coming up on 100 years.
Coming up on 100 years.
Where was the first library and how large was it?
The first library was at the old Zelienople High School across the street here. Then they moved to the municipal building on Newcastle Street. And then in 1975, they built this building.
Well, as I mentioned before, technology has really captured kids, young people. What's the future of a public library?
I think we're always going to have a future. I think we're always going to have books. But I think we can blend the two. We can blend the technology with the books. And as you noticed when you came in, we have the Internet Reference Station. And last year alone, we had 8,000 users to our Internet workstations. So we fill a need there, too, for people that don't have Internet access or have that capability.
Has all this usage of the Internet here at the library taken away from people taking books home with them?
Yes, I think so. I don't see people taking 15 and 20 books like they used to. They're taking maybe 5 now because their lives are so busy in another way that we're not reading. I'm not reading as much as I used to.
I understand that you're tied in with the other libraries in Butler County, the Butler County Federated Library System?
Correct. And that through the county system, we're provided our technology, we're provided a daily delivery service. It just helps to coordinate everything within the county, and it's good for the patrons, our users, because it doesn't matter which library they go to.
So collectively, you have so many more books available.
And so many more electronic resources available also.
If somebody orders a book, can they do it on the Internet?
Yes, they can do it online, and they can pick it up at their local library.
I saw something just about 10 minutes before we started talking here on the television program. A young person, I think probably no more than 5 years old, carrying about 10 books in a big bundle in their arms. Isn't that heartwarming?
It is. It's very heartwarming. And I like to see the excitement on their faces. If it's somebody, a child, that wants dinosaur books, we want every dinosaur book. We don't just want one. We want to take 10 dinosaur books.
Let's talk about how they can get in touch with the library. I know you have a website.
We do. It's www.zelienopelibrary.org. And you can also follow us on Facebook. And you can call us at 724-452-9330.
Jan, thanks for inviting us in. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming. We enjoyed having you.
So now we've seen how writers do it, how they get their ideas, how they get their books and poetry published. Right here at the Zelienople Public Library, another chapter in creativity here in Butler County. I'm Larry Berg. We'll see you next time on Faces and Places.